I remember when I first started, like, food wasn't important, materials weren't important, relationships weren't important because it was yoga above all else.
Good. Well, Alex, welcome to the Nomadic Mic. It's been such a long time that I've been trying to get you on this show. But also it doesn't feel like it's been that long either. I think 2020 to 2023 has been such a blur. I don't even know what day it is today, but hey, we're here. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nomadic Mic. We have the lovely Sean and Steven behind the camera here on set today. And we have a very special guest with us, Alex Lam. Who is Alex? Who is this guy? Well, first of all, a lot of people around Hong Kong and around the world initially know Alex because of his dad, who was a famous pop singer back in the 1980s and continues to be with the legacy that he established a long time ago. George Lam, some of you watching this today may know who he is. But apart from that, what is it like growing up under such fame? What is it like developing your own identity when everybody knows you as somebody else's son? And that's precisely what we're here to talk about today with Alex. Alex grew up in a very musical household. As I mentioned, his dad was a famous pop singer, and I believe your mom was also a music producer, if I'm not wrong.
She was a CEO of a record company.
Okay, there we go. That is a step above just a music producer. So Alex grew up around a lot of music. Yeah, Alex grew up around a lot of music, which is why I personally think it's very interesting. After having such a musical upbringing, you found a lot of meaning in silence through yoga and making your mind still, you know? And there's so much that we have to talk about today. I feel like there's a lot of broad strokes. One of them being legacy, about your dad, like I just mentioned. The next being the spiritual life that you've kind of built for yourself. And third being your creativity, because you are a creative person and your creativity has flown in so many different avenues. You're an actor, you're a singer, you're an artist, you can paint, and now you're running a wellness business, you know? Where should we even begin, man? Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning with what it was like growing up, being you, from everything you remember.
It was like growing up. That's a really broad question. I'll try to tackle it.
Yeah.
So I was born, and I guess you can say the earliest memories of my childhood was in the Hong Kong Colosseum, because I was born in the 80s, and that was when, like, in Hong Kong, this format of big Colosseum concerts was just taking off. So a little context, like Sam Ho was the first one to do a concert there. Like, this place wasn't designed for music. It was designed for sports and big events, like sports related events. And it wasn't made for like music. It was just transformed for a place because in the 80s there was just this huge demand for these music shows. So the first artist to be in there was Sam, and the second artist was my dad. So they kind of pioneered this format that still goes on today. And I think to speak a little bit more about that, like, the concerts that are held in the Colosseum are quite unique in the context of the world, in the sense that like, usually the setting of a concert that I guess we go to that we're a little bit more familiar, it's like something maybe now at Asia Expo, where you have something like that, and you have a stage that faces the just the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you have an LED screen and a band on stage. But this versus, like, in the Colosseum, like, they kind of pioneered this 4-sided stage, mm-hmm. with the stage in the middle that can be set high, it can be set low, and you are surrounded by audience like 360 degrees, kind of like the Roman Colosseum. And it's kind of like, the way I describe it's like a mixture between a music show and like a theater show, because there's a lot of spectacle. There's like dancers running around. And like growing up before, I remember in the 80s, there was less rules. So like, for example, I remember like my dad would have this like crane that it's kind of like those cranes you see in construction sites that can just, like this, and they can just go anywhere on the remote.
Yeah.
So he would be on a crane, like in the middle of the air, like, singing to audiences on this side while there's dancers on that side. Right. So like, you don't really see that kind of concert anywhere else in the world. And that was when they started, I think, doing like 2-hour plus shows and getting longer and longer. And now like an average show, I think in the Colosseum is at least 3 hours, almost 4. Yeah. Whereas international acts, like 2 hours is a lot, unless you're Bruce Springsteen, who plays for like 4 or 5 hours every night, which is incredible. So that was like those are like my childhood memories, like growing up backstage at the Colosseum, like running around and having like all VIP access anywhere. Like there's just some like 4 or 3-year-old kid running around and he can just go anywhere. So it was a great like place to see a lot of things, music wise, art wise, performance wise, and interaction wise. I think the biggest like difference now is like I just remember like the energy of the crowds in the 80s were like intense. Like now you can say concerts in Hong Kong, they're a little more timid. Maybe for certain shows a little more crazy, but like back then, it was like a circus. It was wild. It was like people are going really crazy. A lot of energy.
So I have like 2 questions following that. One is your personal experience of being a kid, and at what age did you realize that you were the son of a celebrity and you had privileged access and certain privileges that other kids may not have had? That's my first question. The second one is, how much do you think Hong Kong's music industry was impacted by the success of Hong Kong's film industry, which was also popping off just a decade before the time period that you're talking about right now?
Okay, first question. I didn't really think about it that much because it was just what was, I was just born, and then that was just my surrounding. Yeah. So I didn't think too much about it. I thought it was a lot of fun for sure, like being able to grow up there in the Colosseum, and it was just really, really. You got to see a lot of different like types of people. Like it was just really great. Like I remember during sound rehearsals, like there'd be a whole band setting up, and then like I would just be running around. And I remember really vividly, like one time I was by the drummer and then they suddenly had to go, and like I was probably playing with the drums, and then he just grabbed my hands and then he just played the whole song. So I was playing the whole song, and like it's a really powerful feeling just to like you're playing in time with that energy and with that dynamic following the whole music. So that was probably my first experience like being a musician, was like this drummer grabbing my hands and playing the song, which is looking back now, like I think a really special memory, a special way to be exposed to music. And then for your second question, like music and film, I mean, back then was definitely a really golden era for Hong Kong cinema and film, because they were really creative, and there wasn't that much competition in all of Asia, so just automatically they stood out versus now there's so much competition from Korea, Thailand, Japan. Like everyone's just putting out really high quality work, whereas before like there wasn't there was very little competition. So they were just definitely on the forefront, and of course that also I think equivalates to like how the economy was back then. So there's just a lot of things helping each other out, and it was just a really great time where everything was just coming together to make really high quality art and products and everything. So I think everything just helped everything.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I can imagine being successful in the film industry and the creatives who were running that show interacting and influencing the people in music, and everyone kind of just bounces ideas off of each other like a massive salon in Hong Kong, right? Yeah, that's really cool for me to imagine. I mean, given that we weren't even alive back then, you know, these are like energies that we can only imagine and that we can only feel when we watch movies or when we listen to music like your dad's, because music like that is timeless, and music like that tells a story from a time that we weren't alive. You know, it's like the energy of the music, it's the kind of lyrics that he uses, it's the kind of soul that he brings into the sound, right? So okay.
Sorry, did you grow up like exposed to Hong Kong music and film by any chance?
I mean, I grew up in Hong Kong, so I was exposed to a lot of Hong Kong things, including Chinese music, though I wouldn't be able to tell you anything because I wouldn't understand anything. You know, I'd be getting my hair cut and they'd just be playing Chinese music and I'd be falling asleep to it, but at the same time, like, I know what it sounds like, you know? Why do you ask?
Like film and stuff, were there films that you like a lot? Like
Bruce Lee films? I don't know, I grew up watching a lot of Bruce Lee movies, and yeah, pretty much Bruce Lee movies were like the main thing from Hong Kong cinema, but apart from that, I wouldn't be able to tell you the names. I watched a lot of TVB.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of TVB growing up, you know, Channel 3. I didn't know what they were saying, but there was like a firefighter show, a show about firefighters. I don't know, Ultraman.
Okay,
That's Japanese, you know?
Yeah.
You know, the classic like Hong Kong kid shows, yeah. I want to know how you're seeing what I'm seeing. And I know what you're trying to get at over here, because growing up in international school in Hong Kong is a bit of a strange experience. I was having this conversation last week where a few friends and I were discussing actually it was with Sean, I remember now. We were talking about the experience of growing up in Hong Kong in international school. And I mean, yeah, good experience, exposure to a lot of cultures and all that. But growing up in Hong Kong was a bit of an awkward experience, especially if I compare it to being an adult in Hong Kong now. I love being in Hong Kong as an adult, but growing up in Hong Kong as a kid was a little bit strange, especially in international
you mean
school.
More in a bad way?
I don't want to like label it good or bad, because life has good and bad throughout life, right? And it was awkward, right? And I mean, you grew up in California, so I think this is a good discussion. Because I imagine it's a little awkward growing up everywhere in the world, regardless, because, you know, the movies kind of talk about teenage angst and, you know, the highs and lows of trying to figure out what your identity is as a child. And that's a universal experience regardless of where you grow up. But somehow in Hong Kong, there's this very unique cultural clash where you might be from a third culture, but everybody around you in Hong Kong speaks Cantonese, but in school they teach you Mandarin, and there's like a lot of abrasion, you know, in terms of culture. And I think for a kid trying to understand all of that growing up is a little bit tough. But then when you're an adult, by this point, you know, you've kind of figured things out a little bit. You have money to like spend in Hong Kong. You have like all these experiences. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of the experience that we were talking about. Yeah, like I would watch Cantonese TV shows, even though I didn't understand what was going on. I would just kind of make up the story as like based on the visuals, you know. And I would watch a lot, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what I was actually consuming. But if someone around the world were to ask me like, what are you? I'd be like, yeah, I may like look Indian, but I'm Chinese. Like I'm from Hong Kong. Yeah, I am Hong Kong Chinese. You know, that's kind of the feeling. Because even though I still don't speak Cantonese or any of that stuff, like, kind of feel like you have that Cantonese blood running through you, you know, through the experiences.
Yeah, family wise, I guess, or just like where my family is, I mean, definitely from here, based here, a lot of history in Hong Kong. So even though I spent a lot of time abroad, like I definitely identify my roots being here. But yeah, I think just now what you're saying about when you're young and when you're old, I think that's just the process of like when you're older, you eventually find your what's the term, like your peoples. What's that word? Your tribe. Yes, that's the term I'm looking for. Yeah, you're that's your journey. You're just trying to find where your tribe is at, or what it is or who it is or where it is. And as you get older, I guess when you're young, you're just searching and trying different things, different like styles, and then some fail and some don't work out, or some work out a little bit, and then you mix and match a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when you're older, you kind of settle in and you're like, no, this is I'm good here. So yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Like there's just like so many different tribes in Hong Kong, right? Or different like groups of people, like local and international, or yeah.
And those are the broader strokes,
those
right?
are the broader
like,
ones. There's even more, yeah.
Even more like within those groups.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, and I mean, your whole introduction into yoga sounds like you finding your tribe as well. Yes.
Yeah. Just to like explain a little bit more. So my grandmother, my dad's mom, is a yoga teacher.
Okay.
So she started learning yoga in the 60s when she moved to San Francisco. And I think like just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, I think for a Chinese woman to have moved to San Francisco in the 60s and to study under a guru and then teach as a yoga teacher was a really crazy thing. Because I remember when I started doing yoga just about maybe 15 years ago, it was a crazy thing. Okay. Like going to a yoga training after college was something that a lot of my peers and family was really like shocked about.
Okay.
In the sense of like, you know, what is this all about? There's a lot of misconceptions. There's of what it is, like, you know, like, and I can't say like my behavior would have eased their anxiety because like when you get hardcore into yoga, you get a little bit weird. Okay. So I'm a little more balanced now.
Explain.
For example, I remember when I first started, like, and was, you know, head deep drinking the Kool-Aid. Like food wasn't important. Okay. Materials weren't important. Okay. Social relationships weren't important because it was yoga above all else.
Okay. Like you're just practicing yoga every day and you just cut everyone else off that wasn't practicing yoga.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I just dove really deep into, I guess, like, I don't know, maybe that's kind of like my personality too. I'm a little bit better now, but like before, like if I was into something, like you just get really deep into it and you just dive into this hole and you're just like rummaging in this hole searching for stuff. So like to like paint a better picture, it'd be like basically if you wanted to, it's not like I cut off all social activities, but like if you wanted to have dinner with me, there would be no way we could have dinner at 7 because my class would end at 6:30. So like the soonest I'd be able to come out would be like 8 or 8:30. So, you know, like your whole life gets structured in a different way. And because like every day I either did class at like 4:35 or like in the afternoon, that meant that I didn't eat. Like I'd wake up, maybe actually no, I think back then I didn't eat at all. Like I just didn't eat until yoga class, because like when you're like doing crazy yoga postures, you don't want anything inside your body. Like it just gets in the way. You cannot bend like in half. So I just went through a lot of these, like, I don't know, just pushing the limits. Pushing the limits of what your body could do and your mind could do. But I'm better now. I'm more balanced now.
But you know what? To become a master at anything, because you are a master yoga trainer, like a teacher, right? To reach that.
I'm not a master, but I've spent a lot of time. But no.
Look, guys. Look. I mean, if you just look at some of the poses that this guy can do, you'll call him a master as well. Okay, like. To achieve that level of mastery, you do need to get that obsessed, you know? And I don't think anybody should be apologizing for being obsessed to that extent with anything. Like, why in society, like, why do we have these labels like you should be doing this and you should be doing that? Who is to say that you should be doing anything, right? Because the only way that you could have reached whatever level you did, the only way that you could have had the impact on other people's lives through your practice is through living that kind of a lifestyle, setting those limits for yourself and for other people with how much access they have to you and whether or not they're contributing to your goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you, and I value like what a lot of my obsession has helped me attain before. But I think maybe now, as I'm a little bit older, and I think back about what balance means. Of course, I'm a lot older now, so I can speak a little bit differently. But if I could go back and restructure the way I learned music, or dove into songwriting and yoga, I think there's a little more. If I took a little more middle way, I could see there would be a different opportunities or different roads that might have appeared. But yeah, this is all in hindsight, so you can't. It's a what if. It's a big what if. Yeah. But I guess that's part of the journey you're learning. So I think that's one lesson that I've learned is trying to be a little more open-minded about what are the things that are driving you, or some of the things that you're not interested in. So whereas before I was just interested in these things, so it was like it consumed my whole mind. But like now I'm a little more open to what other people or other ideas, and I think there's a lot of benefits to consider them too sometimes.
Okay, and this is the perspective that you have now that you're older, right? But the thing is, you've already achieved so much in your life, right? And I feel like this is a perspective that you can only attain when you've reached a certain level of, what's that word I'm looking for? Certain level of experience and just being okay. Like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm okay with things just flowing in my direction. And even though I do love that concept of leading your life in that way, of just being like open to opportunities, open to different like ideas and that kind of a thing, I do feel like it's important to kind of set the intention for where you're trying to go in your life, right? So with yoga, if we can dive a little bit deeper into that whole journey of yours. I've already made it clear. I think the only reason that you've been able to achieve that level of mastery is because you had your boundaries. But then if you could go back in time and actually speak to that, Alex, what are the kind of pockets of experience that you feel like you missed out on because you didn't say yes at the time?
What would I say back to a younger me just starting out like yoga and music?
Sure, yeah.
Well, for one, I was so deep into music when I was like in college. I'd never explored any opportunities to act. And that was something that I was blessed with later in life when I came back here, and I was presented a lot of opportunities to do movies and film. TV and commercials. I suddenly had to learn this new craft. And I feel like if I was younger, if I opened my mind a little bit more and I tried to just learn these things, it might have prepared me in ways that would have helped me later in life. I would have liked to have done that. I would have liked to have tried that more when I was younger, but I guess my headspace was so deep into music that I was just like focusing all this energy to like play the guitar and write try to figure out what songwriting was all about. Another thing I would have really liked to have done if I was younger was play more sports.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I was into yoga. I guess that's a sport, but like, I think I took it for granted. Like, for example, I went to USC.
Okay.
And there's like this, I don't know, it's like world-class gym. And you had these basketball courts. It was called the Lion Center or something. And you had like, let's see, there was like probably 6 full courts in this one gym. And at any time of the day, 24/7, there'd be like full court runs going on. And like nowadays, like I'm just like, I'm really into sports now. I don't know why. In my recently, maybe because of COVID, like we were deprived of doing physical activity.
Yeah.
But like, I wish I went back there and because like it's so hard to find like 10 people to run with you, right? And you have a beautiful facility. And like thinking back, like even to high school, I went to a boarding school in England, and like there was a golf course at my school.
Wow.
And I just wish like now I'd had spent more time and energy just like using those facilities. So maybe this is like and the reason always ask this question, what would you tell your younger self? Yeah, if you have opportunities to like access these great facilities,
yes,
yeah, you should take advantage of them, because it's not that easy to find great facilities to do sports. Like especially nowadays in Hong Kong, it's really hard to even book a basketball court.
True.
Like you got to pay a lot of like more money than what is needed
True.
to go to a government court. And yeah, maybe I would play more sports.
Yeah, dude, I love this conversation because I think some friends and I also came across this idea, like how much time have we wasted? How many resources that were there for us did we not use? And they're not, like your resources aren't there for you forever. I mean, I think sports is a great example because, yeah, you know, your school is giving you all these facilities. Use them, you know, use them in the time that you have them and get good at that thing. And I love that question, like, what are the resources in your life right now that are there that you're taking for granted because you're not even aware of the fact that you have these resources right now?
Yeah, I've thought about this recently, and I think my network, like just like being a little, I think if spending a little more time meditating about like the people I know and the possibilities that everyone can bring to the table by expanding your mind and thinking what kind of collaborations you can do. I think the world now, especially with social media, is like a world of collaboration, and it's just about who you can collaborate with, how you can collaborate with that person to give a surprise, or just to find joy and excitement is simple enough. So I'm really happy that you kept reaching out to me because I was traveling a lot, and you were persistent. You didn't give up, and I'm here. And before I came, I definitely did my homework. I checked out a few of your shows, and I really like it. Yeah, you like. I mean, I didn't know a lot of your guests, but afterwards, it made me curious about them, and I thought you found some really cool guests, and it was really nice to hear their stories, and yeah, that was just a testament to like how you're collaborating with people. So I think that's what. Nowadays, networks, building networks.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for that. That very kind of you to say. And I totally agree with you. Network. I mean, we see all these like Instagram tiles and stuff saying things like, yeah, your network is your net worth and all that stuff. But then there's like a deeper truth to everything that we see distilled on the internet, right? And you're right, it does take meditation. Meditation doesn't mean you have to sit there and like and all that. Meditation literally just means getting deep into something and finding stillness within yourself while you ponder something that can be anything. It's like sports. You can discover a lot of things about yourself through doing sport, going to the gym, having conversation and getting into flow of a conversation, connecting with another human being on that level. That's another really great way of discovering more about yourself. Again, which is why I really respect that you got into yoga, because the kind of stillness that you find by being able to control your body is something that I think everybody should do.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we all have a body. Speaking of resources, we all have a body. But how we use that tool or how we use that resource that is our body can open doors for us that we don't even know exist. And yoga is one of those doors.
Absolutely.
How do you feel? What kind of realizations or breakthroughs did you have after you reached a certain level in the practice?
Oh wow, this is a really big topic, but I like talking about this topic. Yeah, you kind of hit Oh man, my English, like,
nail on the head.
you really hit the head.
Thanks.
You know what I'm saying, right?
The nail on the head.
The nail on the head. You know what I mean. Yeah, you really got it right. Stillness is a huge concept, a huge training that we practice every day in yoga. And I think you even speaking about it, using that word, kind of just shows you actually know about it too. It's all about learning how to be still, because basically a really easy philosophy that kind of helped me understand yoga was like being able to be still, like when everything is going great doesn't mean anything. In yoga, you practice you train your body to be in uncomfortable positions. You got to bend this way, bend that way, and it's tough, and stretching is painful. But the analogy is like if you are rushing out to an interview that day and your phone is like low on battery, and then your car doesn't start, and then you spill coffee on your shirt, and then you get your car to start, but your whole body's covered in sweat, but you're stuck in traffic because there's an accident, and then there's no parking, and then you got to go to the bathroom, but still you can like maintain your peace and your stillness. That's when you're really doing yoga, and that's the kind of stillness that's going to help you in your life. So those were the kind of things that really opened my mind when I first started practicing yoga, was learning how to put my body in my mind in really uncomfortable places, or while I was training, to kind of test my limits and to see how long I could stay on this edge, until eventually, you were asking me what breaking point was, until like when I would realize I was on this edge and I was totally fine. And that was when like my life totally like flipped upside down. And I, as a yoga teacher now, that's kind of like the essence of what I wish to share when I teach yoga, because you never know when your student is going to come to this enlightenment in many ways. And it could be in their first class, or it can be like 10 years after their first class. But that is the power of yoga, is you teach your body and your mind how to take control of what's going on inside. Because I started yoga when I was in college, and I feel like that year in college, like I wasn't in control of my mind or my body. I was kind of like really lost. I remember like I just broke up with my ex-girlfriend, and like I was a senior, so I was graduating, so I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And it felt like I hadn't quite established like the blocks to build to where I wanted to be career-wise, or just spiritually. So like there was a lot of like just emotional like rage underneath. I think a lot of young people have this. And like when I was feeling that, I tried to do everything. Like partying was one way I tried to get it out. Just trying to get seen or be heard, or like just to find some kind of sense of like confidence or something. And then I tried, there was a phase where I was like a hardcore like gym rat, like, and like I was like 190 pounds for like my build, so it was quite big.
Damn.
So like just doing all these crazy extreme things, just trying to find some kind of balance. And then eventually one day it just kind of like, I had this, wait. So actually to paint the picture better was, there was one New Year's and I was just terribly emo, and I went back to my mom's house, and it was like the worst feeling ever. It's like it's New Year's Eve and I am spending it with my mom. Where when you're young, you're like, where's the party at? Like I want to go to Vegas or like somewhere, right? So I was home with my mom, and there was just like, and my mom is like a really healthy person, so she sleeps quite early and stuff, so it's just really quiet. Like you can kind of get the gist of this picture. But then that day on New Year's Eve, my mom was like, hey, let's go take this countdown yoga class. So they timed it where you reach the final savasana right when the clock struck 12. And I was just so desperate and bored, and there's just nothing going on in my life, that I kind of like surrendered. And I was just like, okay, I'll go with you. And we went to the class. My mom wasn't a teacher yet. Later, my mom became a teacher. So we went to this class, or she might have been a teacher. I can't remember now. But anyway, so we went to this class, and I was just struggling throughout the whole class. It was a hot yoga class, 90 minutes, really long. And when my life was already like, when my inside was like really turbulent already, it was just super tough, and I was struggling through the whole thing. And then we finished the class, and then it was midnight, and we were all lying down. Everyone, you're just like in a puddle of your own sweat, and you're just I was just kind of like surrounded by all these people who were there, kind of speaking about what you were talking about earlier, like, you know, what you're setting your intention for. So all these people had set their intention to come here to spend that time, this, you know, really special time that where you really want to be extroverted, right? Like New Year's Eve, you want to go out, you want to like meet somebody, but everybody came here to be kind of introverted, to kind of like put that energy back into their own bodies. But in the sense, they did it for themselves, but then they were surrounded by this huge class of people. And it was a really powerful moment for me. And later on, when I went back to LA, because my mom was in San Fran, that class was in San Fran, and then I just suddenly kind of like what's it called? The switch flicked inside my head, and I just did like a 30-day challenge at the local yoga studio where I went to, and then my whole life changed.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was just this journey of like, I think surrender, yeah.
Just to help you carry this story on further, because it's such a good story. During that 30-day challenge, because 30-day challenges, regardless of what you're doing, are tough. Doing it in yoga, were they the same positions every single day to achieve mastery by the end of the 30 days? How many times did you want to give up? Because you've already explained that you have an obsessive personality. When you get into something, you go deep. But had you reached that point of obsession already, or did that come after the 30-day challenge?
Yeah, thank you. It was progressive. Like that journey of when I really decided, it was kind of like, I think it was the first time in my life that I set a proper goal for myself. So I think that was a big thing. Like before, it was kind of like, you know, just dabbling, like, but never really consistent. Like I was consistent with some things, but consistent on my own terms. Like for example, when I was young, I really liked to skateboard. So I'd skate for like, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day, but like without any real goals, kind of just like free flowing. I'm just gonna try this and try that. But this was like the first time I set a really big life goal. I feel like I'm gonna do 30 days of like yoga. And what really made the difference for me was I think one of the greatest things in life is when you see results from the work that you put in. So, for example, what do I mean by that was I used to be a smoker. I used to be like, I guess you can say, a addicted cigarette smoker. Okay. To the point where like I would buy like cartons from duty free, and like my whole kitchen drawers were filled with, you know, cartons of cigarettes. Like, wow. And it would be second nature just any time to have a cigarette. So one result that I saw after this committing to this challenge was I think probably by like day 6 or 7, I still remember really clearly because the picture was so clear in my head, was I came home from night after yoga class, and back in the States you had to cook dinner every night for yourself, like, because you don't really go out, right, and you don't really order delivery. So I was cooking, and usually after I finished dinner, like I would have a cigarette and like probably then start doing my homework or something. Yeah. And I remember I was just doing the same old routines, and I was smoking and probably working, and I just could not physically finish the cigarette. It was like my body was like so repulsed by it with every drag that I don't know what happened. Like I put it out, and then I opened every cigarette carton from my drawer, and I was just like cutting cigarettes. And I had no idea why I was doing that. Whoa. I was just like, that's how powerful, like when your body is in control, in the sense like it knows what it wants and it knows what is not good for it. Like your mind is like at the mercy of your body. So I was just like cutting all these cigarettes, and it was like where like a day before, these were like precious items that you wanted to collect because you got them duty free because they're cheaper. But that was a really powerful like transformation for me. And then slowly transformation, like more and more results started to appear in the way that I was feeling, in my mind, how my body looked. My body like transformed in like overnight. I remember like I woke up one night and I just felt like my body felt completely different, in the sense like the whole physique of how I carried myself and how I moved. I was moving better. Even like I felt like my internal organs were functioning better. Like whereas like sometimes I get headaches before, I didn't have headaches anymore, or stomach pains, or like, you know, digestion. It was just all working. So like speaking like mechanically or technically, it was just like for example, you have a car and like in the pipes you have a clog or something. Everything was just clear and everything was running to 100%. So because everything is running 100%, you feel happy. So these were great results that I saw just simply by setting a goal. Yeah. And then very obviously after that 30 days finished, I just kept going for like years.
I'm mesmerized by that. But also the thing about cutting up your cigarettes, you said your body took over. Your body was so naturally repulsed by the idea of smoking these cigarettes that even your mind did not perceive how valuable these cigarettes were to you before that experience, and you just kept cutting them away. I think that's such a good story to illustrate a modern dilemma that people have, which is breaking their bad habits for better outcomes that they know will be better outcomes for themselves. But the idea of having your body lead that change and not your mind is not something I hear often. You know, that must have been a really strong transformation. And I almost want to ask you, like, how does someone get there?
Yeah, I totally think we're onto something. Yeah. I think it speaks really loudly for people outside who do want to change their life, because our minds are really weak. We might say, like, if we stay on the subject of smoking, like, and say you're a heavy smoker, and you know you want to quit, and you know your mind is telling you it's bad, and then maybe you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to quit, or you're going to go on a break or something. Yeah. It's just, your mind can only bring you so far. Where if you can get your body on board, you have a higher chance of success. But if I can say it a little bit better, you got to get both of them on board. So in yoga, we learn that every one of us, we have three separate units. So we have our mind, we have our body, and we have our soul. So a philosophy that I was taught was we use our mind and our body kind of simultaneously. So for example, your mind is going to tell you to do this posture. And during the process of learning this posture, say standing bow pulling pose, a more difficult posture that requires you to balance on one leg, and you have to learn a little mechanics of how to kick and stretch at the same time to keep you balanced. But then as you use your strength, you can improve your flexibility by bringing your leg up higher. And so you're in control of your body. So as your body's standard improves, your mind feels more confident using your body. Whereas if you couldn't do this posture, and actually why people get really turned off by yoga is because they come to yoga and they do these postures that are seemingly quite difficult, maybe seemingly quite easy, but they're really displeased with this result. So for example, maybe I've seen a lot of new students come and they do this posture and they fall out in 10 seconds. And they're really unhappy, but their mind is really unhappy with themselves. So they start to hate themselves. But the journey of yoga is a process of learning how to see where you are truly and accepting that this is your starting point. You think you're starting like maybe 0, but actually you're starting probably like minus 50. And it's a huge
delta.
Yeah, it's a huge thing to stomachs, like, fuck, I'm really this bad. And people live their lives minus 50, and they'd rather have their eyes closed to this fact and live their life kind of like a zombie than to acknowledge this and then start. And it takes time. So you're going 48, and then 2 years later maybe you're at 30, maybe 5 years later you're at minus 10, which is a huge journey already. Eventually you get to 0 and say you improve. So when you reach that stage, the philosophy goes that your mind and your body are at finally, for even a span of 10 seconds, they can become one and do one thing. And it's only when your mind and your body can do one thing that they have the in Chinese we call it zigak. You have the credentials, you have the right, you have the key to go and knock on the door of your soul. Otherwise, if this is not working together, your soul is not going to be here. Your soul is so powerful. It looks at these two people and they're like, you guys, it's like a party. Yeah. You go to this party and there's like no pretty girls. Yeah. It's all these weird ass guys. And you're like, I'm out of here. Yeah. Your soul will just go anywhere because it's powerful. It can be across the world in a split second and then back. But when he finally sees that these two things are working together and having a good time and happy with each other, then you can complete this puzzle. And at this stage, when these three things are synchronized, that is when you can achieve crazy feats, such as breaking bad habits or realizing what you're supposed to do with your life, or even better, how you're going to achieve what you want to do with your life. So like speaking from my journey, kind of like to bring it full circle, when I feel yoga helped me like align these three things of me, and then it kind of opened the door to music. Where before, music was just like something I enjoyed, like as something fun. But when I really approached it as a different person, it became like a calling, or it gave me a really great sense of purpose. And to kind of make really broad strokes, eventually that kind of just led me to what it means to be in the creative stream of flow and working with people, which is what I think is one of the greatest things of my life, is not just music projects, but film projects or business projects. Just learning how to be creative or how to communicate with people.
I mean, I think we're so blessed that we've gotten into a really good flow in this conversation. And one thing I want to acknowledge you for is I think you're a really good storyteller, and I think good storytelling requires presence, and not only presence when you're telling the story, but presence in the moment of the story that you're retelling, and I want to shift the conversation a little bit to this idea of presence. Something we talk about, something that comes up quite frequently on the Nomadic Mic, is how people behave with their phones. Because that is a resource that is available to everyone, and it is a resource that is attached at the hip.
Yeah, I struggle with this too.
Yeah, of every human being. And dude, struggle is great to talk about, because it's only through discussion of struggle that we actually get to a place where we're like, okay, we can try that. Right? Like, I mean, I can give Sean's example since she's here on set with us. Like, she doesn't even have Instagram. Like it's not it's not difficult to get in touch with her because she has WhatsApp.
Right.
But her calendars are like perfect. She knows what she's doing every day. It's color coded. And if she does use her phone, it's to Google and answer questions that she has in her mind. And I was like, okay, that is a really good way of using your resource. That is you using a resource and it not using you, right? Same way as cigarettes are using you. Same way as like pornography is using you. Same way as entertainment is using you. Same way as other people may be using you. Like instead of, and that's. Just going back full circle, that's why I really appreciated you saying when you go into something, you go deep, and your life structure is built around that thing.
Yeah.
because that is the only way to grow without other people kind of impacting you, people and things impacting you in a way that is not favorable to that tree growing vertically.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And to speak a little bit more about that, I feel like that's one of the struggles of living in Hong Kong. It's really hard to get in that, like, to be uninfluenced. Because in Hong Kong, like,
uninfluenced.
well, I mean, I'll speak a little, because I spent a lot of time growing up abroad.
Yeah.
And just because of the space that you have, like, just very easily, like, your home, like, you know, I mean, it's so big, right? But you get off work and then you go home and you are really in your own space, and your brain can, like, calm down. Whereas in Hong Kong, like, we're just constantly being stimulated by people, by information all over the place, that it's hard to get a quiet moment. But whereas, like, abroad, when you're quiet, you can really hear your mind think for itself. And you can have the time. I don't know, do you guys feel the same? Like, time goes a little bit slower when you're abroad.
Definitely.
Versus here, right?
Yeah, I call it the Hong Kong effect.
Yeah,
like, it's
absolutely.
in full swing.
Yeah. It's something really, like, someone needs to study, because like, time does not pass regular here. So yeah, you just naturally have this space and quiet to really form your own thought, right? Whereas here, you don't have that luxury, so it can be difficult to get to know yourself, which can be well, it depends on what you want to do. Maybe there are some benefits. I don't want to speak completely negatively about it. Maybe there's some advantages too.
There are several advantages. I mean, we started talking about network. That's like a huge one. You know, if you want to build anything, it's a great city to build in. But I loved that word that you just used, uninfluenced, right? Because we live in a world of influencers and influences. So to be uninfluenced and to find a place where you can just get in touch with yourself again is a place that is limited. It's a limited space. Like Dr. Seuss, for example, right? I don't know, I'm paraphrasing this, but when we think of creativity, we think of like we think of it expansively, right? Creativity means you can do whatever you want, right? But when Dr. Seuss would write his stories, he would really limit himself in what he was allowed to do, which is why he would write these short kind of songs and stories, right? Because he was like, how can I tell a really good story in X number of words? And because he gave himself those parameters, he was really able to thrive and build something that would influence and that would impact people all over the world, right? Now, growing up in an Indian family, right? And not just like, I don't just mean like my mom and dad, I mean like broader family, like extended family and everything. There's this idea of staying within your limits, right? And that's kind of made clear to us from like a very young age, like stay in your limits, right? And even though that might sound like a limiting idea, it's actually the opposite of that. It means stay in your limits and like an incubator. Find your limits, stay there, and grow something, right? Because the sun is powerful. But then there are stars in the universe that are a billion times, like a million times larger than the sun, but they're weak stars. The sun is so strong, but it's compact, and it's able to breed life on planets like Earth. So in the same way, finding your limits and really growing something within those limits can have a far greater effect on your life and other people's life if you were to just focus on that thing, right? Yeah. So I actually want to shift away from this topic a little bit and back onto this idea of legacy, right? Because speaking to you is just such a pleasure. You know, it's so great.
We're going far.
Speaking to you is such a pleasure, and I obviously I'm not exposed to your dad like that, right? How much of your dad's influence as a person how much of your dad's personality has influenced you as a person today? And are you carrying forward a legacy from the way that you see it?
Oh, well, I mean, So I get asked this question a lot, but I never really know how to answer because I think even for all of us, like if you get asked this question about your mom and your dad and your family, you know you are an accumulation of more than just one family member. Like my mom is a huge factor of who I am. My grandparents are a huge factor of who I am. My siblings and stuff like that. But speaking specifically about my dad, he is a really great interpreter of music. I mean, he's not like formally trained or anything as a singer, but he's kind of like he taught himself how to play the guitar and write songs, and he was influenced by a lot of singers from the 60s, and somehow he managed to take a lot of those things and mesh it into like local Hong Kong culture at the time. So he found like a nice balance between East and West. So I think that's cool. I admire that a lot, like how he kind of found a little niche, because my dad, like I don't know if you know, but like the style of his music is a little bit more Western than like local other local Hong Kong singers. So that's something that I see a lot of in my work too, because I was definitely influenced by a lot of like international artists. And I think that just speaks to his journey, because he also grew up a lot abroad when he was young. So he went to England when he was like I don't know how old, like maybe like 10 or 11. Or maybe a little bit later for high school. So he spent a lot of time there. He spent a lot of time in California. So actually, really interesting thing is that his life journey is actually I followed his exact life journey. So he was when we were young, we both spent a little time here, and then we spent time in. I mean, the times are a little bit different, but we both spent time in school in England, and we both spent a long time in LA, and then we both came back to Hong Kong to forge our careers. So, what's the word? What's the word?
What's the word we're looking
for? Chronologically,
yeah.
We have the same like steps.
Right.
So that's kind of trippy. I always trip out when I think about that. But I would say that my journey has been very different from his. And I guess the time and like what's happening in the world is very different. Like so. So I guess the journey has been similar, but the journey is different too.
Yeah. It's very contextual.
Yeah, the context of things. Yeah.
It is. Dude, when you were saying influenced by Western music, right? One of my favorite artists growing up was Billy Joel, right? And
really?
Yeah. So I grew up in a home where just music was like eclectic music was just played all the time. So, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, the Bee Gees, Andy Gibb, all of these, like, I could go on, even like in rock, like the Scorpions, Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
If you should catch Guns N' Roses live if you can, because they still perform. I don't know if you have you?
I've seen them when there was a guy singing for them, like Miles Kennedy or something. Not like the original lineup, but I know they're back together, right?
Yeah. It's a little weird watching because they're all so much older. Slash is still killing it though. Slash, it looks so fucking cool when he's playing. But it's anyway. The reason I brought that up is because I was like grocery shopping. And I swear Uptown Girl started playing, and I like tuned in, and it was a take on Uptown Girl, and it was YUU.
Yeah.
And I was like, interesting, right? And then I picked up my milk, and I looked to my left, and I looked up, and I saw your face, and I was like,
was that when we met or we didn't meet by
when was YUU? What era was this? 2020? Was it?
Yeah, a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but a couple of years ago.
I think it must have been after we met. Dude.
Oh, okay.
It must have been after we met because, I mean, me recognizing you in the supermarket and being like, is that the same guy? Yeah. So I mean, everyone in Hong Kong knows what YUU is because it's been like a thing. What's that been like for you? Because obviously people know that, you know, you sang that song with your dad.
Well, you know, when we did it, we were in like the thick of COVID. Mm-hmm. So then it came out and it was huge, right? It was everywhere. You couldn't escape this song. No. But we were all in masks, so nobody knew. Like when I went out, for example, like I always go to a supermarket near my home, right? And that song would be playing. And like for the longest time, okay, let me contextualize a little bit. So it came out and like already people were like, this song is everywhere. Like it's just on loop forever. And there was this one joke that some people were saying was like, yeah, I always wonder how the people who work at the supermarkets would feel because they're basically hearing it like for I feel unhealthily hours, like 8 hours nonstop, like their whole shift, continuous, like for a year. So like there's this joke where people were just saying like, oh, people who work at those stores, like I wonder how they feel about this song. Then we were saying they probably know the song better than we do now. Yeah. But the context was it. So then for a while, in my mind, I was like, oh. Because I'm really friendly with the ladies who work at the supermarket I go to. They're like, they always smile and I always talk with them and like they're really cute. And then we have a little chat always about some random things. Like sometimes I go like, before I go play sports, like I'm all in sports gear and they'll ask me like, oh, they heard that ball, like you're gonna go play? It's like, yeah, like it's just like we're friends. I don't know, I feel like we're friends. Yeah. So then for the longest time I got a little paranoid. I was like, are they gonna like hate me because like we've been subjecting them to like some kind of like music torture because it's just being played so many times. But the thing is, I feel kind of like I missed out on what would happen because the sad thing is when it came out, like, and I was wearing a mask to go out, sometimes they didn't even recognize me. Yeah. And then like the context of the situation back then was like we kind of like didn't really talk because people kind of like were just in and out when we were all masked up and stuff. So like I never really felt the effects of like the spread of that commercial. But it was definitely quite an experience to be part of something so big. Because I mean, I feel like it totally, very powerfully like permeated Hong Kong culture for about 2 years, right?
I would say even up to now, bro. Like, you know how at the end of the year you have Spotify Wrapped and they tell you what kind of like music you listen to, like the top 5. My top 5 Cantonese phrases are mo YUU. Like I don't have YUU. I'm sorry. Baratong or something, you know.
I saw a lot of people send me a lot of funny stuff. I definitely was very entertained by like memes and stuff for those 2 years. It's cool.
I think it's cool. I had to ask. I mean, you're here on the podcast, like I had to ask because that's for me to hear your voice, because it was them, but like I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? But I definitely did wonder, like, these people look miserable sometimes. And it's not miserable because they're subject to the music, but because that's the nature of the job, you know, you have to like check things out and stuff. Anyway, like this is like a whole tangent. I have like a whole stream of thought in my mind of like how never mind. Yeah, let's not go there. Man, you know, I feel like I could talk to you about so much for forever, you know.
Just do it. Let's go.
Damn, I mean, we could keep going, but
oh wait, we have to wrap up now already?
I mean, look, man, you know, normally we keep these episodes at an hour, but just now when you took that little break, we freaked out. Yeah, like freaked out is not even the right term. Like we were just I needed a break. I needed a break because of how real that was, you know, when those dude, yeah, I don't have my words anymore, you know, like I feel like I'm I feel like I'm high. Okay, yeah, I know what to ask you. Okay, great. So I got really into breath work.
Okay.
Last year, really into breath work, and I learned that I picked this up in India.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of hyperventilation involved in this breath work. So like a lot of like, and doing that on repeat, and like using your arms in different ways and stuff like that. The experience is that of kind of being high, right? Like your body is highly oxygenated, so is your mind, and you feel like you're on a different plane. But the experience that I had, first of all, I passed out in the sense that like I went into a really deep trance, and when the instructor told everyone to get up, everyone got up, and apparently I was just like lying down for another like 20 minutes without even knowing it, because in my head 5 minutes had gone by. But in that trance, the amount of gratitude that I felt for my life, for other people, for even the smallest things, like the guy that sells the guy that wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. to push his cart and to sing to the neighborhood to sell his vegetables, like even the tiniest things that I wouldn't otherwise think about during my day, I felt this overwhelming gratitude for. And this thought crossed my mind the other day, like gratitude, I felt the gratitude to such a deep level that I almost felt like it was a natural human emotion that everyone should be feeling. And when I say should be feeling, I don't mean it like you should feel gratitude. I mean it in the sense that why are we not feeling this way the moment we wake up every day? Why are our days not starting with this overwhelming kind of gratitude for life, gratitude for other people? Because man, it just felt so natural, and I felt like going back to the door and key analogy and what you very beautifully kind of talked about, I feel like gratitude is that door, and I'm not sure how to open that door if not for breath work.
Well, that's great that you found that entry from breath work. So that was kind of like your blessing, right? And that was your portal into this feeling that is really good. I think it can come from, to be open-minded, I think for everybody can come from anywhere. Yeah, gratitude is definitely a great theme that I think we should all feel. I don't know, when you were talking, I just remembered something, like a quote or something I heard, like being thankful, like the difference between being thankful and being grateful. And then it's kind of like being thankful is like an everyday thing, but being grateful like just humbles you completely. In the sense that if you're really grateful, like you surrender to the whole beauty of like what has been given to you, and it's a really great feeling, and it's nothing is about, it wasn't anything related to what you did or anything, it's just it's like greater powers like conspiring and you realizing this greatness in life. So I always felt like that's a great feeling when you can get out of your head and what your expectations are of what happiness is, because I think everybody in our life, we get these little like doses of those great supernatural feeling, out of body, inspirational kind of feelings. So that's definitely what I think the purpose of life is about, though. Like to search for these kind of experiences, and I guess like in Eastern philosophy, like nirvana, what is essentially what that means. And I think everybody can set their life to find their own nirvana.
Yeah.
but it can be anything and from anywhere or in any context, because you never know what it is for you. And so that's great. It's like so intricate. Like you just don't know where it might come from.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really happy you gave us that tool on today's episode for how we could possibly find it, you know, because that does seem like a tool, like 3 keys that all kind of work together to unlock that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something I learned from great teachers that I've had. But to speak a little bit more about that, it doesn't have to be yoga necessarily. Like I find that kind of connection through performing sometimes. There have been moments, like I remember like when I was on stage playing, and sometimes I remember very specifically, there's this one time I was at an open mic and we were jamming some song, like some classic song, I forgot, it was probably like, I don't know, like Stand By Me or something. You always play that song eventually one in the night. And like it came to this part where it was like you could tell like there needed to be some change or like a solo or something, and just somehow like at that moment with that arrangement, with how we were playing it wasn't like the normal way. We were playing it something different, like there's this like energy that overtook me, and it just kind of guided my whole body. Like I knew how to switch to the right sound, the pickup and the tone, and just everything felt right. And I think that's why I'm so addicted to playing sports, because sometimes when, like for example, when you're playing basketball, you just do something and you're like, I don't know how the hell I did that, but that was amazing. And you don't think. Your brain is nowhere in that equation, and you're just in that flow. They call it what, like the flow state, right? State. And I think that's kind of like a part of what spiritual enlightenment is, like finding these moments and enjoying them, because you can't really understand, or you can't really like, you know, contextualize or explain it, right? I think that's in many sense what a miracle is. Like when people describe like a miracle, sometimes it's like sometimes I look back at some like footages of me playing basketball, it's like, that's a miracle. Like how did that happen? Yeah. So those are the real joys of life, I think.
Yeah. You know, you can't be good at doing anything. You can't find these miracles unless you are primed to perform at a level where these miracles can happen, right? And kind of the way that we are living now as a society, I'm really happy to see that more people are touting the benefits of leading a more active, healthy lifestyle, and that includes the kind of foods that we eat, because conscious consumption is also a great contributor to how we function as people in all domains of our life, right? Like if you're eating bad food throughout the day, it's not likely that you can more easily tap into those flow states. I mean, like you said earlier, you didn't even eat when you were doing yoga because it just didn't feel right to have those things in your body, right? And fasting is a massive part of that whole process as well. I know recently you started a company, right? A mushroom company. Please tell us a little bit more about what this company is and why you started this. I think given the context of everything that you've given us so far, now is like the perfect time to talk about it, because now it really does make sense, because you've had the experience of how to actually get into those states of flow. And I feel like this product that you have really does help optimize people for that. In fact, we have some on set right now, and we haven't mixed any with our coffee. I've been just dying to mix.
Shameless plug.
Been dying to mix one of these up with the coffee. Do you guys have some?
Yeah. Shameless. Okay. Shroomate. Okay.
Hold on. Here you go. Oh, you have? Okay. Cool. You got?
So try the green one first.
The green one.
Yeah. Start with because this is a lighter one, and then it gets heavier in taste.
Okay.
I think. Okay, so let me try to like preface this with another experience that I've had last year. So last year I was doing this job, and I was working with this this creator, really like currently really well renowned creator who does a lot of digital art, a lot of like really cool stuff, like with avatars and stuff like that. She's totally immersed and like just popping in, like everything she's doing is like hitting all the marks in the digital world, basically. Really on the cutting edge. And like just really casually I was just asking her, so like, oh, how do you foresee the future of technology? And, you know, basically I think just trying to ask her about her opinion about, you know, basically how our lives are like so interconnected with phones and social media. And then her answer was something that really like kind of like blew me away. She was saying that, oh, she just answered really casually. She was like, oh, I think in the future, I don't know if she said like everybody, but or a part of the population is just going to turn off their phones and they're going to go do farming and stuff. And I was like, oh, like that's really interesting. So like someone who's like just on the cutting edge of this, like thinks in the future, like people are going to go 180 degrees.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really poignant like illustration of like what I've been trying to do with this new business Shroomate of mine is basically like trying to reevaluate what it is that we have in our life and questioning, does it serve us the way we want it to? And is there anything that we have forgotten, like in the ancestral sense of how we live our lives, that maybe we just have never been exposed to, or maybe we have forgotten. For example, when I was a kid, I'm sure I spent a lot more time rolling around on the floor in the grass. Like I remember when I was, you know, 7 or 8 years old, like I would spend all my afternoons outside and I'd be rolling around on the lawn, making make-believe or like playing with sticks and climbing trees and stuff.
Yeah.
And does that equivalent to me being more connected with nature and being grounded to the earth's like electoral current? I think absolutely yes. Whereas now, like living in Hong Kong, like I live I live like in a building way up in the sky, and I don't sleep touching the floor, and arguably I barely touch the ground. And some days I can be inside all days and not be exposed to the sun, or being prolongedly exposed to air conditioning as a source of cold, when maybe I should be exposed to natural sources of cold. So like Shroomate kind of has been this part of my curiosity to try to see what really works best for me. Like my body is a machine and I want to feed it what it needs now at the moment for the goal that I want to achieve.
Yeah.
So like I've done a lot of research about mushrooms, and I'm really excited by the effects that it provides. For example, the cordyceps mushroom is really good for blood circulation, and I've spent years in the yoga room hearing about how yoga is all about blood circulation. How like there's certain yoga postures that you do, and once you hold it, you cut off the circulation to that specific organ. And you know, like kind of when you hold your hand like this and it turns blue, that's essentially what you're doing to that organ. So when you release and you have this, the more you hold the posture better, you build up more pressure. So when you release, there's even more pressure cleaning out that organ. So your blood is cleaning it out, like how you take a shower and you clean your body. But if your blood has no oxygen in it, there's no way that organ is going to receive the nutrients that it needs to thrive. So for example, when I heard that cordyceps like increase your oxygen uptake by 50%, that's exactly what I want to give my blood the nutrients that I want it to have. So this new brand is just a journey of trying to put together the pieces of my life of yoga, learning how to use my body, and activities and networks. Our goal, our dream is to try to turn this as with everything else I'm doing, kind of like, is it possible to make like a festival or like a kind of retreat where we can do all these things in one place with a group of people that are really interested to go on this journey together, through music, through dance, through, you know, arts and crafts, through, I don't know, talks, through food and beverage, through those kind of experiences.
Yeah. In Hong Kong?
I think starting out in Hong Kong, but it'd be great if we can travel and bring this vibe and this party to like different places, wherever we're welcome, wherever we find our tribe.
For sure. I do think this part of the world needs a little bit more of an exposure to that kind of a concept, you know, because we see a lot of people who have found their tribes starting these kinds of things up in like California, for example, Canada, Australia, like all these places, India even, you know, like new societies. But I think those little societies they have actually started opening up here in Hong Kong as well, you know, like your Lama and Lantau people, that's where it's all going down, you know, but bringing this lifestyle to the city and the people who are so ingrained in that Hong Kong effect that we talked about, you know, I think that'll really benefit them. This tastes really earthy.
Yeah.
This tastes really earthy. What do you guys think? How does it taste to you guys?
Yeah.
Like, I put it in my coffee and it transformed into a mushroom soup.
Yeah.
Boiling and stewing. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways you can do it, like by itself, with coffee, with different drinks, with other teas. So it's really flexible. You can cook with it. You can mix like hot chocolate. Like, you
said you can cook with it, but cooking, would it like denature would it?
That's one of the great things about this formula, is that it doesn't like kill off any of the nutrients. It's a mushroom, so essentially like when you cook with a mushroom, it kind of it's like that too.
Okay.
But it's the advantage of it being in powder form is you're getting even more.
Yeah.
So we're doing this kind of beverage choice tea because there's 3,000 mgs of, for example, this cordyceps now. So that'd be like equivalent of taking, I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10 tablets. Capsules. So you're going to get a really intense dosage and of high quality. So another thing that we're really proud about is we use the fruit head. So like, you know, mushroom and, you know, root. Other brands, you know, might use the whole thing, but we kind of believe that, you know, we're using this head and it's all the greatest nutrients, concentration of nutrients, the most premium part. So we're trying to give a really premium experience to high dosage, premium, high quality, caffeine free, sugar free, gluten free. We're USDA organic, so it kind of ticks a lot of boxes for all sorts of people with different needs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Shameless plug. I'm sorry. There we go.
Hey, I mean, if it's, you know, it's funny because we haven't talked about any other brands on the show so far, even though other people who have come on the show do have their brands. But the fact that I think literature around mushrooms and just the number of people around the world who are now purporting the benefits of it, I think it's worth talking about, you know, because if it's going to improve your life, then why not talk about it?
Yeah.
So if people wanted to find to actually buy these shrooms and try them out, where would they go?
Right now we're selling at yourshroomate.com, so online. We have a lot of different projects coming up. We just launched officially in May, so we're still kind of new. So it's only been like a couple months.
Okay.
But we're going to have different collaborations, different events. So hopefully you're going to see more of us around. And yeah, we just want people to try and see if you can supplement this into your life. Of course, I just also want to say it's not a cure-all magic pill.
Yeah.
I really stress that. Like for me, how it works best is I'm supplementing this, but I'm also doing yoga, I'm doing other exercises, and I'm taking care of my body, eating well. So that's essential.
Sure.
I think it's just about an education and a learning of how your body works.
Yeah.
And like coming back to the yoga thing, just the sooner you can start this journey and do it, you know, with really, really, you know, a really honest interpretation of looking at yourself, that's where it's all about. Yeah, not being too hard on yourself and knowing it takes time, but just taking that first step.
Yeah, taking that first step. I mean, I have gotten into a yoga practice myself fairly recently, and I can with confidence say that it's completely changed my just my body, my existence, the way that I experience life. Surya Namaskars are just kind of my staple and what I try and do every day. They say you're supposed to do it 108 times, because that's the number of, do you know why?
No,
108 times?
Like something with the Earth rotation?
Yeah, I forget the exact story, but it has like some Hindu connection, Do you learn a lot about Hinduism through the practice of yoga?
I wish I did more, but sadly, maybe very surface level.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to say I'm well read on it at all.
Yeah, no problem. Well, there's a lot to learn all the time. And since we did talk about resources, I think one of the greatest resources that we do have is information, but categorizing information that's available to us and actioning it into our lives takes time. That's also a practice. I mean, people call it studying, but I think studying isn't reserved for academics in a university. Everyone can study, but it does involve setting an intention for what you're trying to discover.
Yeah.
Finding the answers to that, collecting those answers for yourself.
Yeah.
And the same way that you would consume shrooms and coffee and go through that whole experience, I feel like knowledge very much is like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You need to curate it for yourself.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. For me, that was like the biggest changing point of music. Like when I was young, I don't want to say forced, but I was privileged to be able to have extensive piano lessons, music lessons, but I didn't enjoy it because I think, like echoing what you're saying, like that education that's like you have to be, you're just like consuming it, right? But like the trick or like the flip of the switch or how to make it like really great and serve your life is like how you apply that knowledge. Or like if you can think of a way to like get into it in your own way, then it becomes really exciting, and then you have this hunger that for music that is like never ending.
Yeah.
So I think that's like what I would like to see with education. Like if I were to have a kid, like I would like to educate him or her like that instead of like, oh, I just need you to learn all the history dates or something, but like kind of being able to apply it somehow. I think that's like, I don't know, maybe some schools do that now, but for me that was like a big change of how I saw music.
Yeah. Reaching a level of mastery with something so that you can get creative with it. Totally agree with that. And I imagine it's the same with yoga or anything else. If you suck at something, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to be able to inject your personality into that thing. Yoga, music, all these things that we've talked about today are different forms of expression, and there are personalities. Like if two people do the same yoga pose, right? From this perspective, from watching them, it might seem like, oh, they're both doing the same thing, but both of them are having very unique experiences in doing those poses. And because we all have different bodies, we also look different when we do the same things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So reaching mastery is a beautiful thing for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We usually end our episodes with the classic question, like what would you say to your younger self and older self? We've already covered
I feel like we've been answering that question the whole time.
We have, right? Kind of, yeah. And it's hard to kind of just...
We went straight for it, right?
Yeah, it's like... It's hard to like bring it all together. But I guess a good question would be, you already know what the experience is being you right now, and you know what you would say to yourself back in college. But what are you anticipating the conversation's going to be like when you're much older with you now?
So like what? So like maybe 20 years later?
Yeah, sure. 20 years later.
I mean, I think where I am now in life is like learning what it means to be on the journey, like in the sense of like, actually I don't know, I've never really been a like when I was younger I wasn't really that concerned with like I guess quote unquote the terms of success or like accolades, but now as I'm older I get a little bit more concerned about that. But how I'm finding like a balance about that is like reminding myself that we're on a journey that hasn't ended yet, and if you just think about like the outcomes of things, like you kind of lose perspective of the greater picture. So I would like to say maybe like before, I don't know, try to enjoy more, or not be so like, yeah, just enjoy the journey more. It seems quite simple or cliched, but yeah, I don't know, maybe something like that.
Just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
More, don't worry so much.
Yeah.
Cool.
Allow yourself to have, I don't know, more fun.
You look like you're having fun.
Yeah, I try to. I'm trying.
It's good advice. Sage advice. You have anything left in that?
A little bit.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Cheers, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show.
How
Cheers,
long
guys.
have we been going for?
The longest episode we've recorded, hour and 30.
Oh.
Very easily.
I feel like
dude.
we're just getting started.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Yeah.
It's the mushrooms, huh?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thank you for...
Yeah. I feel like we didn't
doing the
cover
show.
a lot, though, somehow.
You
But
know,
somehow we...
I mean, we would really... I feel like we... I don't know, man. It's a really... It'll be a good listen.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, being here, and I mean, I'm sure for you guys listening to this.
I'm happy because I feel like we've touched on subjects that are really core to, like, who I am. Like, versus, like, maybe some of the things that people might expect if they're going to see an interview with me.
Yeah.
Like, so I appreciate that.
And
I feel like...
Dude, great. That's fully the intention.
Yeah.
Like, we're not here to just... give people what they expect. We want to know who you are, right? And hopefully the space and kind of like just the energies of everyone being here kind of helped bring that out of you.